Welcome back to Cop to Corporate. I'm Sammy T, your podcast host, and today I am thrilled to welcome Chris Grollnek to the show. Chris is the nation's leading active shooter prevention expert, an incredibly important job that is unfortunately something that's top of mind for a lot of people today. So you have a really interesting background and trajectory. First of all, welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Yes, welcome. So yeah, you have a really interesting background and trajectory into what you do now as very highly respected active shooter prevention expert. You've got over 33 years in public service, which is amazing. Hats off to you for that. So tell us how you got started in law enforcement and the events that led you to what you do now.
Well, thank you very much for the intro. I think that you say well respected. I'm very grateful and flattered by that. A lot of leaders and leadership from the country reaches out for different prevention and response takes, if you will, or short takes. That doesn't always bode well with other police officers. And I just want to say at the very beginning of this, I mean, I was in the car. I used to wear the Batman utility belt. I was in the little cockpit flying car, call to call, listening to the Good Times radio and Channel 2 in my ear and Channel 1 blaring and on the phone, whatever, eating a sandwich and drinking coffee. I remember all of that, and I never strayed from that. Now, I've made controversial comments in the past, I've been doing this a long time now, so 13 years, 14 years, and some have not always been well received by police because it's raw and it's right at the time. But I've never apologized or had to apologize for anything I said, because I remind people I only talk from a basis of fact, not opinion. And what is my opinion, I will tell you. And I usually don't share that publicly. So I just want to get that out there, because this is a very strange place to be in the world, especially in the active shooter prevention side. I was a Marine forever. I was a drill instructor at Parris Island. My daughter was born in 1997. And, we're marching down the beat, and I get down to PCS to move. And I go to an experimental place and school for the Marine Corps, and end up working with some DARPA people. And I got to meet the whole world. And I learned about, becoming a policeman and going federal law enforcement. I'm like, this has got to be for me. This is going to be great. And like all cops, it was in my blood. My grandfather's a policeman. My uncle's a police. My other uncle, and they're all Los Angeles County Sheriff, LAPD. Me being obstinate, I went West Coast or East Coast. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to figure something out. And I got sick one day. I thought it was going to be terminal. Had a tumor, had heart surgery, bounced myself out of federal law enforcement. And they did the heart surgery to remove the tumor. As a triathlete, I thought it was invincible. And that was 1999. So with little to figure out what I was going to do, it was 98, little to figure out what I was going to do, I started heading over to Dallas and finding my way there. And I applied at, about 4 agencies and wasn't really sure what I wanted. So I took an internship at the Perot Foundation for Ross Perot Sr. And his lead bodyguard was a captain from Dallas and kind of mentored me through. Long, short, I ended up at McKinney Police Department after a couple other departments, and found myself in the middle of an active shooter in 2010. In 2012, I'm really dumb, by the way. I always tell people I'm probably one of the dumbest people you've ever met. Can't spell my name, but I know about the subjects that I want to study. So I decided to run out and get a degree in, it's administration of law and justice, but I have an emphasis on active shooters. And it turns out that there's only 4 people in the world that have been inside an active shooter that have a postgraduate degree in the discipline of active shooter. So DHS reaches out in 2012, and out of nowhere, Sandy Hook happens. And this is the first day that tested my mettle of being a human. I've been on those calls, right, where child calls, spouse calls, domestics, drugs that involve children, whatever, bad child calls that still haunt me. And I swore to myself I wouldn't put myself in a position to follow up in that with the death of kids. And when Sandy Hook came, I couldn't even respond or react. I took like 4 months off. I shut down everything. I just graduated with my master's degree, and I'm like going to set the world on fire. And took a step back and reevaluated what I wanted to do. The FBI at that time stood up their desk. Run, hide, fight became a thing that Houston developed. And then in 2014, so there's some time there, but I mean, this was a very hard ladder to climb. You're talking tenacious, right? You no quit, because every day people are telling me why I don't deserve this job. Nothing, small town USA. I mean, you fill in the blank of whatever. And it's like people don't realize the experience of one thing can change everything. And my one thing was that day as inside an active shooter in 2010 in McKinney. Then getting my degree took 2 years, so it wasn't like a one-day thing. And all of a sudden we're 2014 and I'm making a video for DHS, a PSA. It's online, it's free. There's no click or pay to play or anything. And we capitalized on Run, Hide, Fight to help other people. And as a cop, other people don't need anything. I'm a cop. You give me more money, faster cars, better guns, shinier lights, more training. We're going to stop these active shooters. And every law enforcement officer I talk to says the same thing. By responding faster, we'll save more lives. But see, we're failing to see part 2 of that. And I am the one that realized this about myself. So this isn't about your audiences. These are my failures. 2018, I was court ordered to Parkland as an expert. It was involved kids. I wanted nothing to do with it. I actually refused. Almost held in contempt, which is a very long story, not appropriate for this dialogue. So I went there and I realized everything we taught about run, hide, fight in schools was dangerous. Like just cut to the chase. The kids that ran, they got killed. Now running works, but you have to know where to run. We just forgot to say that in Run, Hide, Fight. The kids that hid got killed because you have to know where to hide. And they're waiting on the police. And, Parkland, let's go ahead and hit that one. The officer's outside with his gun on the radio, not knowing what to do, pacing back and forth. And then the 3 people that fought got killed on the spot. Everybody wants to be that person that's going to run in, but there's 8 instances that I could tell you right now of school shootings that armed police were on scene that did nothing. And, I was of the mindset of being a policeman, and no matter what, I'm gonna, fill in the blank. And there's 100 failures I have in my back pocket. I remember them all too well. But if you don't have the mindset, the critical mindset, either get it or just be honest about it and find somebody. Doesn't mean you have to quit your job, change your career. Maybe some chiefs or sheriffs would have the opinion that people like that don't belong in law enforcement. But we're a microcosm of society, police are, right? So we need everybody. Good, bad, other, right? We set examples, a good example, bad example, and learn from that. But if we can't embrace all of our mistakes and put them forward, we're kind of tarnishing our own reputation, right? And I'm not preaching to anybody out there. I'm just telling you from my perspective, it took a long time to look in the mirror and humble myself and say, oh my gosh, I messed that up pretty bad. Instead of dwelling on it for 5 years, which there are ones that I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that call. Instead, now I'm like, oh, that was the best thing that ever happened to me because it made me think about something different. Long way around your answer, but there you have it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can say that their pain is able to turn into purpose as much as something might be really, really bad for them in that moment or in the years following. If you're able to turn that around and turn it into something that can help others, like what you did, I think that that's a really important thing for someone to be able to do.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I am in a hurry to retire out of this job, though. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. People say, oh, it's so great. I'm gonna start my own active shooter business tomorrow. And I'm like, hey, cool. And they call me and they'll ask for advice or help. And they just turn on the run, hide, fight thing and want to do that. And I'm like, okay, but think about what you're asking. You're trying to shift the paradigm of the public to become like police. And in the environment we're in right now, where not everybody loves the police, that's difficult measure. And then you get the John Wicks of the audience that tell you all the great things they're going to do. And sometimes, yeah, a good guy with a gun does stop a bad person with a gun, or a good person with a gun, whatever. That's not the reality, right? And I remember, not an opinion. These are statistical facts out of 25 years of, my thesis studied 25 years of active shooters. And I started at Columbine, and back then it was like, a small sample from 99 to 2012. But now I study every day. I go 25 years when I stop because Oregon happened before Columbine in 1998, and that was a mass tragedy. The reason I kind of dropped that off is I was really looking at the perspective of police. Oregon had a fantastic response, and this kid was insane. I'm going to diminish it and just make it insane because I can't think about why they would do that. Anybody that shoots somebody else is crazy to me. So I don't have a technical explanation for it. I'm not a psychologist. The police response to that was fantastic. Now, if you look at Columbine, you can say the police response for that was outrageous, but really it was fantastic. They did a great job. They surrounded the building like they said. SWAT showed up like they said. It took 45 minutes to make entry, like they knew. But see, if we take those numbers and we understand them, and that was the basis for what they were supposed to do, okay, they did great. But fast forward to 2022 in Uvalde, an hour and 17 minutes with 376 police officers on scene. I don't have the answer. I don't have the explanation. I don't know why nobody did anything. 99.9% of your alpha audience would say, if I was there, cool, I agree, me too. However, I interviewed a couple of those police officers. I have to be careful about this because I'm in an NDA, but I'm going to reduce it to this. Why did you engage that shooter? What happened? And I can only say more than one officer out of a large sample said, well, I don't know, Chris, I'd never been in a gunfight. Pardon me, it just pissed me off. Because I ended up saying, who else wasn't in a gunfight? That 18-year-old. Tell me again about all the heroes that are going to run in and stop this. Because when that moment of, oh my gosh, happens, the body can't go where the mind has never been. Clearly, these people never believed that 19 children would be executed and 2 women, 2 teachers. And that's all I'm going to say about that shooting because it's horrific. But I did have a lot to say about that, and I knew about the police response because I was involved in it from like the first hour. So I ended up resigning from all things Uvalde. I won't do anything with it because of the children. But learn from it, put it in your pocket. And if you're listening to this and you want to criticize me for saying quote unquote an opinion or whatever, just remember this is a fact, and I don't mind taking any criticism at all. You can criticize me all you want, but at least learn from it. Take a look, don't take my word, go and review it and get your own mind right if that's what you believe you want to do. Because when you say this is what I'm going to do, it turns out that's not always what happens. You're a policeman, right? Sammy, so what happens, you go to do that traffic stop, you're like, oh, like clockwork, and everything that could go wrong does. That's right. The worst day of your life, the unthinkable. I did a traffic stop at 3 a.m. on my way to 7-Eleven. My backup shows up and goes, dude, we're down like 4 reports. Can we just get this done with? I'm like, yeah, of course. 4 minutes later, my partner's in the trunk. The guy's trying to beat my partner with the trunk lid. And I got nearly knocked out. So, I mean, everything that could go wrong did. And yeah, we look at us, we're fine. But it wasn't a fine moment. And it was supposed to be a quick traffic stop. Can't go back and change yesterday. So we learned from it, and we take those examples and we're like, wow, don't do that again, but help others. So I would ask your audience before they say, oh, you don't know or whatever. Okay, take one of your worst experiences and then realize how bad you want other people not to repeat your mistake. And then go ahead and give it a try at your department and start preaching the word of what you want to teach. And tell me how many officers are going to be receptive to listening to what you had to say. Because we are our own worst critics, enemies, trainers, trainees. I know better than that. And that's cool. I'm not saying all of us. I'm saying the majority. I'm one of them. And now I have to, for 10 years, remind myself every day, just listen to what this person has to say because they probably know more than I do, which is easy. Just not about this exact topic as a caveat, but I don't know about that shooting that they were in. So I listened to everybody and I'm like, hey, at that shooting, you know more than I will ever know about that shooting. Can you teach me? And I put it in my little blender and mix it up, and then we come up with these solutions.
Yeah, well, that's a great segue into my next question. So, because of the experience and events that you had during your time in law enforcement, which you're now retired from, you were able to create your own career after retirement. So, what would you tell cops who want to start their own business, and especially if it's law enforcement related, like that's what you took from your law enforcement career? what advice do you have for entrepreneurs?
Okay, so this is, remember, a transition from fact to opinion. This is my opinion. Don't fall in love with plan A, right? Have a detailed plan. Don't go into anything with just a wild, we call it a swag, right? A scientific wild ass guess. I think I'm going to go in this direction. Plan it out and then go meet people in that discipline and ask them what they think. How hard was it to get a job? Because there's a lot of people, right? This is not just cop centric, this is above and beyond, but we're again a microcosm of all of society. There are people out there that go and they have this, the good idea fairy shows up and says, hey, I got a good idea. We're going to launch a podcast and I'm going to get rich. I have 100 million followers on LinkedIn, right? My podcast gets 100,000 maybe hits, maybe, and I have like the director of the ATF on sometimes. I have the director of national nuclear security on. What do I know about that? Zero, nothing. But, it's a good conversation. I thought, oh, what a great idea. Not to make money, but just get the word out. I can't get people to tune in just to listen to the person talk. And I'm like, okay, it's me. So I changed the host and we got 1,000 hits. So I went back and hosted it. I'm like, okay, well, let's just adjust. And you have to be able to adjust and move and change your tactics, right? 7-step violator contact. You don't have to go number 1 to 7. You can start at number 1 and seriously quickly get to number 7 because something goes wrong, right? Like a force continuum. You don't have to oh, that didn't work. I'm going to try the next thing. Be ready to change, be fluid, and most importantly, this is my opinion, get yourself some thicker skin than you already have. And if you think you have thick skin, go talk to somebody on the outside about your good idea and wait 5 minutes. And when they hurt your feelings, and they will, it's okay. And it's okay. I'm over 50. I can say anything I want now, right? I'm pushing double nickel 55, but be ready and be vigilant. And when they tell you that's a stupid idea, you have to decide one of two things. My stupid idea is going to work for me, or adjust and say, why is it stupid? And then adjust your idea to something that they think, that they might agree with you on. But the most important lesson I've learned, I can't say whom, but a very famous person taught me this. It was right after I got in the Marine Corps and before police, so you might be able to figure it out because I already said who I worked for. He says, Chris, the rule of 100, just remember the rule of 100. And this literally changed my life. I've never shared this before. I got to write myself a note. You go somewhere and you go to your department and you do 100 things. 99 of them are flawless and perfect every day. But that one thing where admin's coming after you, IA's coming after you, the whole department's talking about you, and it's something simple. You broke the coffee pot and forgot to leave a note, or who knows what, right? I mean, I don't even have a good example. Or that one thing is so devastating, like, oh, that didn't look too good on camera, but they weren't there and they have to go back and review the footage. You're going to focus on that one thing over the 99 great things. In your own perspective, you have to learn how to fire and forget. I tried, it didn't work, let them laugh. Because part 2 to that rule of 100 is the McDonald's theory. In 5 minutes, you will not remember what you were laughing at me about, but you're going to remember what you want for dinner. And yet 5 years later, I'm going to be hanging on to that day I made that stupid faux pas about whatever. I'm so embarrassed. No, wipe it away and move on. Get thicker skin. The rule of 100 is important. Focus on yourself. Focus on 99 good things. Forget the one, and remember, you're a better person for it. If you didn't make that mistake, you would have made it later. So at least you got it out of the way.
Do you think that having thick skin and understanding that mistakes are going to be made is what made you most successful after law enforcement?
Oh, 100%. I said that I'm the dumbest person on earth. I mean, that's not just a phrase of, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome.
Turnover. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I ran away from home at 14 years old and dropped out in 8th grade. I mean, when I joined the Marine, I ran to the Marine Corps. I was in transition several years and made every bad mistake a kid could make, thank God, nothing critical, like, something that would disqualify me from life. But I made dumb decisions, street racing, girls, whatever, getting drunk at 16 years old and being taken home only to run away again. So, I didn't even drink, just, whatever. But the thick skin part was I'm okay with not being the smartest person. I'm glad I'm not the smartest person. And when I walk into a room, I always find the smartest person. I try to attract myself to them. And sometimes they're the wrong person. Okay, guess what? Best thing happened to me today. The worst thing that happened is now the best thing, because I know not to waste my energy with that person ever again. And I'll tell you one other little simple thing, and it sounds so simple, but it's like a tome, right? When somebody tells you who they are, believe them the first time. When they say, "Oh, I meant to call you back. I was going to sell your product. We were going to hire you. We forgot." You're not that important to them. Move on. But just you want to chase the thing you want to do until you realize it's not attainable, and then you might be the wrong goal, the wrong person, the wrong dream, or you have the wrong direction. Super simple. Make an adjustment and try again, but don't quit. And I'll give you a really good example. Not this is a fact. So I told you about LinkedIn. My following is ridiculous. I'm not bragging. I'm saying for perspective. I have 30,000 first connections. I'm capped out. I can't have any more. I've got 35,000 direct followers. Can't have any more.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the outreach, it's 192 million people that my page reaches every day. Those are my metrics that come back, or whatever they call it, analysis that comes back. People text me on LinkedIn and say, "Chris, I need a question. I have a question. I need this right now." Well, they don't realize I'm on an interview with you. My phone's over here. I'm not looking. I'm not reading LinkedIn. And after you, I'm traveling to Chicago today to give a speech tomorrow in the Chicago Hilton. And the day after that, I'm going to Minnesota and Minneapolis, Minnesota, and a couple Fortune 100 companies. I have like a whole speaking tour I'm doing. And I come home on Friday and I'm like, oh, I'll catch up on my email. Friday's already booked and my plane ticket leaves that following Sunday. Nowhere in there is there time for this person that wants to reach in for me to call them. But in their mind, I've disrespected them and their idea sucks and they're going to move on. So I would tell you, push. Just keep pushing. Just put yourself in the other person's position, change your perspective and say, hey, maybe they're busy. Go find somebody else. But that's not a reason or an excuse to quit. Just because you got one no, hell, there's 330 million people here. Who cares what one person says? Until all 333 million people tell me no, I'm not stopping. And your listeners and audience should know, no matter what, learn from your mistake, move on to tomorrow. And if you're one of those people that, terminated early or quit early, or you went into that 7-year stretch of law enforcement where people quit and want to get back in, or they're out and they, their family doesn't want them back in or whatever, find your path and just keep going. That's the most important thing. Don't be tenacious and don't stop. And what I do now, and I just told you this glorious travel schedule I have, it sucks so bad. I hate it. I hate the airports. I hate the hotels. I hate not being at home. I hate missing my family. But when you're on stage and you're teaching, you're preaching this message, the reward on the other side of it is not monetary. Find what you love to do. I love to speak, right? Obviously. And I love the comments that come back. Oh, you suck. This is the worst. Because for every one of those, there's 99 other ones that said, man, you told me something that was so good that blah, 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 right? Take those, forget the ones that are no good and pump yourself up and go to the next one. And yeah, I do make good money doing it, but I'm ready to retire. And it's not like I'm going to retire off this. I'm already retired. I just want to make sure that we stop active shooters. That's my passion. And when the police shake their head listening to this going, it'll never happen. Problem, solution, right? Choose which one you want to be a part of. Well, we have a solution, and we have 3 registered safes from our program that we wrote. And I wrote the Department of Justice program, by the way, in 2022. Not bragging. I'm saying I messed up so bad in 2018. I figured out how to change it. And in 2022, I got another opportunity. Go find what makes you tick and write that program for the next Department of Justice, because someone knows more than me. They're out there. I'm just, I'm waiting to meet them so I can step aside.
Yeah. And, rejection is redirection is one of my favorite phrases, as cliche as it might sound. But from my own experience, that has usually things turn out way better than you think that they will. When there's something that you want and it doesn't work out and you're like, devastated, like, why is this happening to me? And then it turns out there's something way better for you out there. And I think that can apply to leaving law enforcement, or if there's a job you want after you retire and you don't get it, like, I promise that there is something else out there for you.
Let me tie in one more thing. I know we're short on time, but I promise this can be worth it. All right. Discipline over motivation. What does that really mean? I told you 55, dumb, takes me a long time you hear things, but you're like, I get it, but I don't get it, right? Okay, well, motivation, I'm motivated. I want to go be a policeman. Can't wait. You put that badge on and nobody can stop you. You're bulletproof, right? Until that first call where you're like, hey, IA wants to see you, or you got a citizen complaint, and then you're stressed out, right? And that's like, this badge isn't so great. And badge will get you a relationship, but a relationship will get your badge. So those things will all, right, kind of transcend. You have to be ready. If you can take that, the hardest job to get, easiest job to lose, police, right? It is. Take this lesson from that, right? I try to stick away from matters of the heart or relationships. But this is one of the best stories I've ever heard. And it's not a story, it's a fact. And I just got done telling my daughter, and by the way, how do I know it's a fact? Not because I read it in Time magazine, because I asked the people that would know. And then now it's factual, more than 3 contact points, just like a witness interview. Don't believe anything, right? They witness nothing. They witness what's in their mind. You get 3 of them that say the same thing, chances are you're on the right track. So, the famous singer Adele, right? I'm not a big fan. I just know who Adele is because she set like every record possible. Did you know that she was in a long-term relationship with somebody? He broke her heart, and I don't know what the dates are, so this is total hyperbole, but let's pretend he broke up with her on Friday. He was like engaged to get married 3 weeks later, whatever it was. And all she wanted to do was marry the guy. Heartbroken. What is it? Who's Adele? Who cares? She's a human being. But what did she do? She took that hurt that made her hate life and everything, went to a record, and she was already a singer, but nobody knew who she was. She wrote these songs, whatever they're called, and shoots into the recording studio and sets 3 platinum breaking album songs of all time based off her hurt. You want to talk about opportunity, right? She took a negative, made an opportunity. I bet if you ask her that story right now, and she said, this is an opinion, you ask her, hey, was it worth it? She would say no, but she would say yes on a basis of, my heart's better than it was. This career doesn't suck. Yeah, I set this record, made other people feel better, but boy, what an expense I had to pay. And if your viewers can remember, nothing is free, nothing free is good, and everything that causes heartache will only be a blessing for you in another way down the way. You just have to remember that step by step.
That's really great advice. If you could give one more overall tidbit for cops who are thinking about leaving or have left and just have no idea what to do, what would you say?
Well, I think it depends. We're in a very strange place right now with the age gap. And I've said my age twice now and again, over 50. There's a reason for that, right? Gen X, Gen Z, Gen what, whatever you want to call it, right? Some people go to if you ask somebody my age to look something up, our first inclination would be find the yellow pages, which is business offerings, or find the white pages, which have people, right? Well, that went away 40 years ago. Some of your viewers or listeners don't even know what that means. So then you go to, my new age, right? Okay, I'm kind of technical. Look something up. I go straight to Google. My daughter, she's 27. Hey, daughter of mine, look something up. Where does she go? TikTok. You have to know what venue you're trying to explore. So don't just take a dart and throw it at the wall and say, I want to do this today. And even if you're desperate, I would encourage you, go get a job serving, go get a job bartending, go get a job with the public whom you probably don't like. And it's okay not to like them, but remember how to like them again, because they always need you. And what do I say? Famously, I wish I repeated, I didn't make it up, but police, solving 25 years of problems in 5-minute increments. We show up to your house, you've created this nonsense that took 25 years to create, and all of a sudden it's my responsibility to fix it for you right now as a copper. Well, you could do that. Go to a restaurant, get a serving job, learn to like people, make some money, and learn what you want to do. And if you say, yeah, but I'm 40 years old and that's going to take 5 years, cool. In 5 years, how old are you going to be? 5 years older, but you'll have this thing that you wanted to do. Don't be afraid. Take that step, because nobody's going to give you anything. Buckle down, find a mentor, go to these places like Rotary, Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce, ask to go to lunch there for free, learn what your community is doing, and then find out if you want to do anything inside it. And if not, you might need to move. But don't be afraid. Start reading books. I highly encourage you to read books on not motivation, but self-help. And I don't mean the ones that say, look in the mirror and give yourself affirmations. I'm talking about the ones that teach you what discipline really means. And I was a drill instructor and I thought I knew what discipline was. Not a clue. Discipline is doing the same thing over and over and over and over until you hate it. And yet you continue to do it perfectly, not substandard. That's discipline. Discipline is what happens when motivation runs out. Discipline is that thing that took you across the stage to get your badge and your gun and your diploma, right? And now discipline is going to take you to retirement. You're going to have a gun, a badge, powers of arrest, a bad attitude, and no policy. So make your own personal policy and don't break it.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was an honor to have you on here. And where can we find you?
The goofiest thing, the website's ASPP Pro, one extra P, right? Active Shooter Prevention Project, Prevention, Response, and Options. But if you just type in active shooter expert, I guarantee the first 2 or 3 returns. Click on that, send me an email. I'm slow to reply. I don't even have an admin anymore. When I tell you we're winding down, I am winding this down. So I have the Active Shooter Prevention Project is comprised of 17 companies, 39 people. We have an advisory board, and I have stepped so far back now. I just do public speaking. I quit doing training, quit doing law enforcement. We have people from the FBI HRT team, Delta Force SEALs, cop on the street, podunk nowhere. We've got everybody. We have somebody from the NFL that's an advisor for us, not a player, but an executive. We have generals from the military. When I say left to right, everybody. And it's not because, Chris Grollnek came up with a good idea. It's Chris Grollnek went and got a whole bunch of people and made this work. That being said, you have to answer your very last question, you have to find what works for you and then get other people excited about it. Once you do that, work does itself. You don't have to work another day, and enjoy it.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, listen, all your listeners, I'll say one thing. The deputy director of the ATF was on with me a couple of weeks ago, and this guy punched me in the mouth like I couldn't believe it. I want to just tell you a quick story about resiliency and understanding your own flaws. You get so wound up in the you, the me, the me, the me. We have to make it about the we, not the me, number one. And number two, suicide and cops, the public is not worth your life, right? Unless you're protecting them, and that's in the name of. But if you have mental health issues or trouble or whatever, and you think there's some taboo attached to it, you are the only person that can take care of you. Go get help, go talk to somebody. Mental health and wellness are like top tier of all of our hearts. And the guy punched me in the mouth because I didn't ask him about it, even preach about it. So take care of you. Nobody's going to, but we're all fighting for you. So keep up the good work. Thank you.